Jones. Uh, this is what we're all about as a church, folks. It's about souls. These two beautiful little babies, gifted, loaned to you guys, by the way. They're not yours. I mean, I know you're paying for them right now, sort of. But they're on loan to you from God. This is a soul. Both of these young men, as we'll talk about here in just a moment, but they are souls. It's everything that we do is about this. Not just about children, because whomever the oldest person is in this sanctuary this morning, your soul is important to us too. Every soul, Jesus came for one purpose: souls, the souls of men and women. And he's speaking to us through his word. He's speaking to us through his spirit. But what we are about as a church, come on, Harlan. All right. This is really what the church is all about, your soul. And some of you didn't get carried in here this morning. Some of you walked in here this morning. Some of you had to come in a wheelchair or some other way to get here. But I'm telling you, whatever situation, God has a plan for you to be here this morning. And his plan is to bless your soul. Our church, and I believe any church genuinely, the purpose of a church is to bless souls, to help them understand who they are. And believe me, if these two young souls are within our grasp, within our congregation, from the nursery to children's church, to Vacation Bible School, to youth group, to whatever it is, we understand, I believe as a church, I hope we understand that this is what it's all about. It's not about how big your buildings are, or how many seats you got, or how much money you have, or any of that kind of thing. It's about souls and doing a great job in Jesus' behalf for the souls that have been entrusted to us. And so I am thankful for every soul that walks in the door, every soul that comes in within our church family here, because God brought you here. And there's a purpose and a reason for it. And we want to bless you this morning. So let's bless these two young men and their parents as I hand off Houston back to Dad Noah. There you go, buddy.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. On the screen, you can see what we've been talking about, Deuteronomy 10. This is the last in the sermon series, if you will. But it's been on my heart to talk about the heart and soul. And I mentioned at the beginning, 2 sermons ago, we talked about our hearts being our cardia, the center of our being. And I had the picture, you might remember if you were here, of the brain. And we talked about the prefrontal cortex and orbital cortex, which is where shame and guilt occur, and how that is a signal from God, because we know when we're doing wrong and right. You don't have to be taught. I'm looking at Marilyn Connor here, but the most famous sermon I ever had was from her husband, Jerry, who came up to me one Sunday after church and said, "Mark, you don't have to say all that stuff. You don't have to take 30 or 40 minutes. All you have to do is say, y'all know what you're doing wrong, now stop it." And then dismiss them. So you all know what you're doing wrong, but we do, because that's our conscience. That's our heart. It's our chooser. And our soul is who we are. And so we see in that verse the things that we are to do with our soul: to fear, to walk, to love, to serve with our heart and our soul. So we're going to finish out with the soul, and we're going to talk about the battle for the soul, because it's on right now. And I brought Harlan and Houston up here for a point that, not just to display them or talk about them and the importance within our church family, but folks, the battle is on for the souls of humanity. Not just individual souls, even the corporate soul. In other words, who's in control in our culture today. Last week we talked about Grok and artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here in just a moment, and some of the things that I believe that it's bringing to the situation, to our culture. If Harlan and Houston live to be 100, they will see the day 2125. Think about that. 100 years from now, what's the world going to be like? Some of us in here, nobody in here is 100 to my knowledge. Some of you act like it sometimes, but nobody in here is 100. But think about the changes you've seen. What's it going to be like for these two young men growing up? What are they going to see? How's the world going to evolve? Is it going to get better or is it going to get worse? We all know Jesus is coming back, but we can't just use that as an excuse to get lazy and distracted and do nothing. Remember the parable of the 10 virgins? 5 of them were wise because they kept their lamps lit and they kept expecting, looking, hoping, praying, believing that the coming of the bridegroom was going to take place. The other 5 were lazy and distracted and fussing over stuff that didn't matter one whit. And in the end, they lost out on the opportunity to be a part of what God was doing when the bridegroom came because they were out of oil. I want to say to you this morning, don't get out of oil. You got to be engaged. You got to be on board. We got souls that have been entrusted to us. You have souls that have been entrusted to you as a parent, as a grandparent. They've been loaned to you, as I said. They're not yours, they're God's. And he wants you to do the blessed. If he didn't believe in you, he wouldn't have given them to you. And he wants us to be spiritual because everything about this world is spiritual, folks. Everything we do has some kind of spiritual connotation or consequences. We are souls. And so this morning, I want to just throw a little picture on the screen. You've seen it before, but I want to put it up there for you. You've seen this before, Northwestern University, but I realize that some people are newer to the sanctuary, to the congregation. So I just want to display this. In 2016, Northwestern University in Chicago, took a picture of something that absolutely amazed them. That is the moment of conception. And what they found at that moment of conception, and again, we're adultish enough in here, the egg and the sperm are uniting at that moment, but when that moment takes place, there is a flash of light. And that's what they photographed. I mean, that's an actual photograph. And I don't know for a fact, maybe I'm just sort of making this up because I like things to fit into context of what I want to say, but is that perhaps the moment when the soul enters the body? Is that light? Because you are light, you're children of light, and you're going to live in light, and we have a God who is light. Is that the moment when your soul enters this physical tabernacle, this piece of flesh worth about $5, I think, depending on if you got gold in your teeth, then you're probably worth more than that. But regardless, our flesh, our physical body's not worth much. But when that soul enters the dirt, when the soul becomes into the zygote, which is what that is, at that moment, it is worth infinitesimally more than we could ever imagine or hope for. It's worth whatever somebody was willing to pay for it. And what was somebody willing to pay for that soul? Their life on the cross. That's how much you are worth. And that's what we look at here. So as you think about that, if that's the interest of the soul, perhaps, I don't know, I want to just touch on some things. I really believe that the battle that we're engaging in today, we need to define it a little more clearly, and so I hope and pray to do that this morning. Here's what we're going to look at. We're going to talk about soul facts. We're going to talk about Satan's methods. We're going to look at the Tower of Babel here in just a moment. Genesis 11, if you want to turn there, and then the struggle for truth, and then the battle for truth. So those are the things that we're going to look at today. And so I want to just give you 5 truths that you can see on the screen there that have to do with the soul, I believe. Fact number 1 or situation number 1 is that at conception, every human is endowed with a soul. Now again, I don't know if that picture is exactly what's happening, although that is true science right there that I just showed you. And the flash of light is that moment of conception. Every human has a soul. That's what makes you human. And that's what God did when he breathed into Adam. Adam became a living nephesh, a living soul. And so every human, so these are just 5 biblical truths about the soul. You have a body, but you are a soul. You possess a body. But this isn't you, this flesh and blood thing that you take so much care of and do so much with and spend so much money on and all that. Nothing wrong with that. You look great, honestly. It's working, it's good. But that's not the real you. Do we spend more time working on our body than we do on our soul? How much time have we spent improving our soul? Because that is really what God's interested in. And it's really the cause of the problem that we have most of the time. Our souls are broken. Our souls are angry. Our souls are mean sometimes. Our souls are out of source. Our souls are disconnected from the Lord, and therefore we're disconnected with other people. And we wonder why we have marriage problems. We don't have a marriage problem. You have a God problem. It's just showing up in your marriage. Because a lot of times the things that we're complaining about are because we're unhappy, and therefore we're going to take it out on everybody else, right? So, but we are a soul. You have a body. Number 3 there, the human soul is the only eternal and indestructible thing in the universe. The book of Isaiah says that all of creation is going to roll up like a scroll. You know, the Big Bang Theory, which really isn't a theory, but nonetheless, you know, they talk about the expanding universe. Well, someday that energy is going to end, and what's going to happen when the energy no longer is there? Bzz, boom. It collapses in on itself, which is exactly what the book of Isaiah says. But there's one thing that's going to exist after the universe. Your soul. Your soul is eternal and indestructible. Number 4 there, after physical death, your eternal soul will exist or live on somewhere. You're never going to die, not in the sense of ceasing to exist. The question this morning is, where is your soul going to be 100 years from now? Because it's going to be somewhere. And it really is the most important and vital thing for you to consider. I'm going to ask you this question. We're going to sing this song in just a little bit. Is it well with your soul? Think about that this morning. Is it well with your soul? Because you are eternal and you're going to spend your eternity somewhere. And then, of course, number 5, we understand this. I hope you're here at church. Understand that everything that we do as a church, everything that Christ Jesus does for us, every word in this book is to redeem and to bring blessing and peace to your broken soul. And your souls are broken. It got broken at the Garden of Eden when at that moment of disobedience, we sort of got magnetized by the devil, if you will. And now once that happened, once we failed, if I had a magnet up here and I had some paper clips, I could pick up all those paper clips with my magnet. Well, that's kind of the way sin is to us right now. We've been magnetized by the devil. So there's an attraction to the wrong things, to the sinful things. You ever notice, I talked about this last week, or a couple of weeks ago, you don't have to teach children to be sinners. It's a natural inclination. Those 2 beautiful boys that just were up here are going to give their parents so much grief. And someday they're going to say some things to them that their parents never expected them to say. Because as beautiful and wonderful and sweet and glorious as they are, they're sinners. We are sinners by nature. And because of that, we are attracted. I've noticed my wife taught school for many years, and she had 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. And she learned more profanity in that class. I'm serious. Not for any of the teachers, the children, because they pick it up. They say what you say. And some of the children came from some homes where that was a common occurrence. And guess what came out of their mouth? Yeah. So we don't have to, and there's an attraction to that. We're attracted to sin. And that's why we have to break that curse. That's why we have to allow Jesus to transform us. So let's look at Genesis chapter 11. If you want to turn there. I want to say just a couple of things here. I've got me some notes up here so I won't forget. And also so I can read because I can't see that screen real well. So I put these sheets up here. It helps me to read a little better. I believe there's something going on in our culture today. And I'm going to tie it back to the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11 in just a moment. But I want to just explain it to you this way. I don't think Satan's greatest weapon is to destroy us. I don't think his greatest weapon is to be in your face. I believe Satan's greatest weapon today is distraction. It's distraction. We are not focusing in on he gets us into the mundane and the foolish. We spend hours and hours, and I'm not down on playing games or, whatever your games may be. I'm not down on all that. You need recreation, you need peace, you need some off time. I'm not down on that. But I am saying that Satan keeps us focused on things that don't matter. He keeps us fighting about things that don't matter. I mean, we look at our culture and the world is dying in so many ways, and we're in the church fighting about what color of chairs we need to buy. Or maybe not that, but we do some dumb things, don't we? Instead of focusing on the real issue, which is eternity. Because in 100 years, nothing's going to matter except whether your soul's in heaven or hell. Is it well with your soul this morning? Is it well? And so I talked a little bit about AI or technology. Well, let me just go ahead and look at the screen here for just a moment. Genesis chapter 11, starting with verse 1. And I highlighted and I put a couple of words in red there because I want to make some emphasis. I did that on purpose. So I want you to understand that. Genesis 11, this is after the flood. The people have gathered together. Some leaders at some kind of TED Talk meeting or the World Economic Forum meeting of that day. You see, you understand, folks, Satan doesn't change. There's not a creative bone, if he has a bone, in his evil body. All he can do is profane and pervert. He can't create anything. That's why hell's such a dangerous place, because God's going to give you a new body. He's going to create for you a new body in heaven, but Satan doesn't have the power to create a new body for you in hell. Now, I don't know what that means or what that looks like, but Satan cannot be a creator. He is a created being. Only God is a creator. But there's still something in us as man that says we want to be God. And from the beginning of Genesis, we've seen that. So here's Genesis 11, starting with verse 1. Now, the whole world had one language. That's a different word there. It means word. And a common speech. And the word for speech there, I put beside it there, is they had a mindset. It was groupthink, if that makes any sense to you. Everybody thought the same. And they liked it. They wanted that. Satan hates creativity. He would like for all of you to drive a black car that looks exactly the same and with nothing in it. I mean, that's the way Satan is. He doesn't want individuality. God created all of us as individuals. Those two young men, are they identical? Fraternal? Okay. But even identical twins, though they may have the same gene pool, they're different. Every one of us is different. God's a God of uniqueness. He's the God of beauty. He's the God of creation. All the animals, all the plants, all this beautiful world that we live in, all the things that we enjoy, all the ways He created our body to enjoy. God loves individuality. That's why every one of your names are written in the book of life. He didn't give you a number, He gave you a name, and He knows your name, and He knows what's going on in your life right now. I believe that with all my heart. He knows what's going on in your circumstances right now. Satan is not that. He loves groupthink. He puts you all the same. When the Antichrist comes, what's he going to do? Well, it's going to be something with a number, whereas God's always calling you by name. Jesus called the sheep by name in John chapter 10. So names are important. Verse 3 there, it says, then they said to each other, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. So they used bricks instead of stones and tar for mortar. In other words, we've got some technology going on here. Maybe it was concrete. Maybe it was something else. But we got some technology going on. We're going to push away the old methods, and we're going to get something much better and newer. Technology is on the way. So let's do that. Then verse 4 says, then they said, and notice what he says here, and again, I've highlighted in red. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the people were building. Now, folks, you may say, well, I thought God's everywhere. God is everywhere. But there are some times when He shows up in vivid person. He did that with Abraham when God was getting ready to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. He showed up in person. He did that throughout the Old Testament in what we call Christophanies. He did it most explicitly when He came to earth as a little baby in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago. We call Him Jesus. So God came down to see what was going on in a very personal way. That means this was a big deal. Something was up here. Hang with me for a minute. I'm going to get somewhere. Something was up. Verse 6 says, so the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then notice when we sang about this, nothing is impossible. Well, God is saying of this time and this situation, if this is happening, nothing will be impossible for them to do. So there's a unified power of the enemy that is pulling things together. I want to say to you that that's exactly what's going on in our world today. And don't think for a moment that it can't happen. I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here. Don't get upset with me, but I'm going to remind you of 5 years ago in a thing called the pandemic. The world was unified, folks. And there was a groupthink that said, you're going to do this, whether you like it or not. And I don't care if you think we ought to or not ought to. I'm just simply saying, don't think that it can't happen, because it's happened in a sense in your lifetime. And so the enemy has, and I'm not calling anybody the enemy here. I'm just saying the reality is that we've experienced potentially the Tower of Babel, at least something of what it could look like in our own lifetime. In fact, I'll even say that the Old Testament gods are still very much alive. Some of you might have read Jonathan Cahn. He had a book about this. I'm just going to give him a little bit of credit for this. But the Old Testament gods that were worshipped, did they just go away? I mean, there's Baal. Baal's mentioned like 400, 300 times, something like that, in the Old Testament. The most mentioned old god. Or idol, if you will. And then there is Ashereth, the god of sexuality. And she's mentioned like 100 times. And then there's the gods of Molech or Chemosh, the same god. And they're the god of child sacrifice. And they're all mentioned, those are the three most prominent gods mentioned in the Old Testament as idols. Do they just not exist anymore? I want to say to you, they're just as active today as they were back then. They may have different names, and we may not go to a certain little gold statue or stone statue, but I'm going to tell you, those gods are very much worshiped today. The god of power, the god of sexuality, and the god of child sacrifice, those are worshiped today in our society. Am I wrong? We're still doing the things. We lift up the power of man. We lift up sexuality as something to be achieved, the goddesses of fertility. Everywhere you go, look on television, look on your phone. Everywhere you go, we're worshiping sexuality, which is simply just a gift from God rather than the God who creates and blesses us and gives us that unity and companionship of a godly marriage. And certainly, I don't have to tell you, with Planned Parenthood, the most evil organization in the world, what they're doing and what we are making as almost an idol, I think it is an idol. It's happening. Those false gods are still very much here today. So let's talk about Satan's methods there in the Tower of Babel. What was Satan wanting to do? Well, he was wanting to build a congregation, a city. He wanted to have a group there, and that's kind of like a church. It's kind of a counterfeit of what God wants. He built an altar. I just put this little picture up there, just kind of a graphic design. We don't know what the Tower of Babel looked like, but if you look around, almost every time something is going to take place, there's some focus for the worship. It's a high thing. It might be Burning Man, if any of you know what I'm talking about there, or something. But there's always some sort of something to focus in on. Maybe this tower was supernatural in the fact that it had ability to broadcast or do some things or draw. Maybe it was more powerful than what we thought. Maybe it was just a focus of man building. But they were building this altar. It's a spiritual calling, by the way. And that's what they're saying. This is my cause. This is what I believe in. And so it becomes not just a physical, not just a thing to do because it's good. It literally becomes a spiritual entity for many people, and Satan loves that. That's the Tower of Babel. Notice there's a worship there. We're going to make for ourselves a name. Praise us, praise us. We are the ones we've been looking for. I heard that not too terribly long ago by a politician. We are the ones we've been looking for. No, we're not. But mankind's desire is to always lift up and build up ourselves. I think that's going on in the world today. I think the enemy's goals haven't changed. I don't think his plans have changed. I don't think his methods have changed. He's just putting them by different names. But the problem is we're not seeing it. We're distracted by much. We're not understanding. Folks, we're going to need the Spirit of God more to interpret what's going on in this world today. Harlan and Houston, in the next 100 years, they're going to need the Spirit of God because it's already getting difficult to understand what's happening. Am I right or wrong? Somebody, I'm listening. I mean, we don't know. I'm not saying we don't know right or wrong. The Bible is defining it. But I'm saying we're living in a culture that is blurring things and that is distracting us. This is what two verses that we look at here in John chapter 18 as Jesus is standing before Pilate. And you remember the discussion there, and you can read it on the screen. I've highlighted the point that I want to emphasize. As Jesus was saying, if you knew the truth and what was standing for you, if you knew who I was, you would understand about the truth. And Pilate's response, what is truth? That is going to become more and more the question of the day for our society. Because we're going to be deceived. We're going to be, it's going to get, to use the word fuzzy, muddled, difficult to perceive what is really going on. We're being lied to, but it's going to seem like the truth. In fact, that's what Daniel chapter 8 talks about when it says, and again, you can see concerning the Antichrist, and I'm not here to talk to you about the Antichrist per se, but in those days, perhaps this is the day, but in those days when the Antichrist will come, the one thing that's going to be the battle of the ages is truth. And as you see in the red there, truth was thrown to the ground. It's easy to deceive. And we need to recognize that that's the battle. I want to show you something here. I mentioned last week about AI, artificial intelligence. And by the way, AI is neutral. It's neither bad nor good. But we also know that Satan is going to take anything he can and use it to damage the souls of our children, the souls of our families, the souls of the world. And AI is part of a dangerous new technology that is going to be out there promoting that it is full of intelligence. Well, it is full of intelligence. But we're not about intelligence. The goal is not knowledge. The goal is truth. And so we need to understand and not get distracted or seduced into the idea that knowledge is what it's all about. That's what Satan talked to Eve about, right? At the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God has called us not to knowledge, but to wisdom, to truth. And so I saw this the other day, and I thought it was interesting. It's just a little picture, and I think I haven't tried it out here. I hope it'll work well, but this was on X, and I was just reading through. This is done by Grok. And I looked up this lady, Sadie. She's from North Carolina. She just has a website, or she's on Twitter or X. But what she did is she has Grok 4, and one of the things that artificial intelligence platform, Grok 4, does, and some of the others may do this as well, is that it can take a picture, just a simple picture, and make it look like it's something else. Make it look like it's alive. Let's see if this works here this morning. There is some music to it. If you look at it, if you locate it and fact check me, and that's okay. Always fact check me, no problem with that. There's music behind it. We're not going to play the music, but let's watch this picture. This is her mother, her grandmother, and her grandparents on their wedding day in Italy. It's just a black and white picture. But notice what happens. Now, did you see that? Can we run that again, Tammy? Can we go back to that? I'll let you get me there. There we go. Now, none of that's real. That's not happening. But it looks very real, doesn't it? And so it's just a picture that got turned into something much more. I'm just laying that out there. I think it's a beautiful thing that her grandparents are able to experience that. What I'm simply saying is that we're going to have to be so much more wise, so much more attentive. We're going to have to keep our lamps trimmed and burning. We're going to have to be aware. We can't be asleep. I said last week that one of the dangers besides communism and Islam, I think in our country, in our culture, is the fact that the church is asleep. And I don't know that you are asleep. I'm looking around. I don't see anybody asleep right now. Brian Hargis? No. I don't see anybody asleep. So I'm simply saying we got to be spiritually awake because the enemy is after our souls. He's after the soul of our culture. Let's look at one other thing here. I like to read, and one of the books I read some years ago, I think it was assigned probably in high school. I'm not sure I read it then, but later on I read it. It was a book called Brave New World. Anybody familiar with Brave New World? It was written in 1932, so it's an old book. But in Brave New World, there's this drug pill called Soma, S-O-M-A. And in this book, in this sort of novel, if you will, people were just, they were sheep led to the slaughter. They were just willing to go with whatever was told of them. All they wanted to do was be left alone. And what they had was Soma, and that's what the government gave them, or the powers that be. Oh, just take some Soma. You can go on vacation with Soma. You can take all the pain away with Soma. You can relax with Soma. Everything was, and I'm not down on medication. I'm simply saying Soma was the answer to everything. But in the book, there's a line or a little paragraph here that I think is very profound. This is out of the book, Brave New World. In a properly organized society like ours, nobody has the opportunities to be noble or heroic. We don't want people, we're all the same, right? Participation awards to everybody. Nobody's better or more brave than anybody else. It goes on and says, there's no such thing as a divided alliance. Jesus said, you're either for me or against me. But remember the Tower of Babel, we want all to be together. We want that unified power. We want groupthink. And I'm telling you, folks, the only thing standing in the way of groupthink is you. It's the church of Jesus Christ. And it's us being brave and unique and aware and unafraid to take a stand in this culture that we live in. It's happening, by the way. I'm not down. I'm just excited with what God's doing. But it continues on just to close out there. There's so much... There's no such thing as a divided alliance. You're so conditioned that you can't help doing what you ought to do. But what you ought to do is on the whole pleasant. So many of the natural impulses are allowed to free play that there really aren't any temptations to resist. Everything's okay. And so take away temptations. It goes on and says we don't want to work on that hard moral training. You see it in red up there. We don't want to work about hard moral training. Anybody can be virtuous now. And isn't that kind of where we're at? And, of course, the last line there is what attracted me. It's Christianity without tears. Well, folks, Christianity is tears. Jesus cried over the souls of men. It's caring. It's compassion. It's engaging. It's putting yourself in that. And so this morning, I want to close with this last scripture here for you and for us, the battle for our soul. This is really where I believe it's at. If you see the scripture there, Luke 8:12, and this is coming from the parable of the sower, throwing the seed out that Jesus told. But this line from the parable of the sower, those along the paths are the ones who hear, and then the devil comes and takes away the word. Takes away the word from their hearts. I'm done this morning, but the team's going to come out right now. And I want you to just stay put for a minute. I want you to, look, I know how hard it is to be even in church. You know, we get distracted. We get a text. You know, I got a text here that tells me that, thank you for doing Verizon. I mean, we get texts all the time, right? And we're so distracted. Again, I'm not down on the cell phone. I'm not down on technology. But what Satan's main topic is to keep you distracted from the truth. So that we will, just like what we read in the Brave New World, we'll just take our little soma, we'll just be happy, we'll be going through life with rose-colored glasses. We won't engage, we won't contend for the souls that are lost and damaged and broken. And we're their only hope. So this morning, I want to ask you one question, because I believe Satan has stolen some things from you. Real quickly, one little story. Went out with some friends, went to dinner, then we went to a movie down in Carbondale. We came out from the movie, went to where my car was parked, and it was gone. It had been stolen. This is 2 years ago. My car had been stolen in Carbondale. Imagine that, Darrell Webb. He used to be a police officer in Carbondale. But here's the deal. We had been talking, laughing. We'd just been sharing some things. We got out of the car, went in to see the movie. It was The Chosen. And I'm pretty sure I didn't lock my car. I got distracted by some things. And what mattered to me, because I'm going to tell you, when you come out and your car's gone, there's a violation that you feel in your belly when you realize somebody stole something like that from you. It's 2 15-year-old kids, by the way. But it was my distraction that led to the theft. There are some things that we are in danger of having stolen from us culturally because we're distracted by much instead of focusing in on the important things, the value of the soul, your soul, the soul of our culture. Is it well with your soul this morning? You walked into this sanctuary, you're either one of two things. You're either saved or you're lost. You're either going to heaven or you're going to hell. You may not know what that is for sure. You may not be certain. I'm asking you, begging you, I'm with everything within me. Do not walk out these doors this morning until you know for certain that your eternity is in heaven. Until you know for certain that it is well with your soul. If you're not sure whether you are or not, let's make sure and certain this morning. So I'm going to invite you to come, or I'm going to invite you to pray a prayer. I'm going to invite you to make a decision this morning to make absolutely certain that your eternity is in heaven. There are others who have had dreams stolen from you. Satan gave you a lot of things. God gave you a lot of things. He gave you a lot of seeds. He gave you a lot of opportunities. And Satan just came along and stole them while you weren't paying attention. He's taken away friendships. He's taken away relationships. He's taken away finances. He's taken away marriages. He's taken away a lot of things because we weren't paying attention to the condition of our soul. So I'm asking you this morning, is it well with your soul? We're going to stay seated. We're going to sing